Hello, welcome. It's time for another episode of the series about Camille Flammarion. And today we have here with us in the studio Dr. Carolina Correia. Hello, how are you, Carol?
Hello, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having us.
It is a great pleasure and honor to have you here talking to us about part 3 to 5 of this wonderful book by Camille Flammarion, God in Nature. We
Mhm.
had last month, on the first Sunday of the month, we had our dear friend Roberto Watanabe talking about parts 1 and 2. And today we have your presence here to, give us this wonderful talk. So I won't take up much of our time. I'll just quickly introduce Dr. Correia. Carol Correia, she's been a language teacher to adult learners for the past 24 years. Now I believe 25.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She holds a PhD in student centered pedagogy. She worked as a language professor at the University of Delaware for 15 years. So she currently works for the United States government as a Brazilian Portuguese language and culture instructor. And she's also a very active member of the Spiritist Society of Virginia, where she is part of a team of Spiritist educators for children and youth. She also takes part on a team of lecturers and of the Society of Virginia mediumistic meetings. In addition, she participates of the Spiritist Society of Virginia's outreach efforts. So lastly, Carol also collaborates with the team of translators in an effort to make Spiritist books more readily available in English. And she is also a host at Kardec Radio. So welcome again, Carol. It's
Thank you for your kind introduction, Munir, and for our teamwork effort in the good.
okay, thank you. So today, let me just bring it here. As I said before, Carol will be talking to us about God in Asia parts 3 to 5. So, Carol, it's all yours. I'll be here at the backstage and I wish you a wonderful presentation.
Thank you kindly, Munir. It's an
Thank you.
honor to be here tonight.
Thank you.
So let us all, dear friends, feel ourselves inspired by this great pioneering mind who is Camille Flammarion. We are so grateful to him and other incredible minds like Leon Denis and, of course, Allan Kardec for bringing us the very foundation upon which we stand. Their work, their courage, their devotion to the good has literally changed our lives. So much gratitude to Camille Flammarion and the other great minds that were part of this pioneering team on Earth. And as Leon Denis kindly told us in one of his books, when we read an inspirational book by any given author, we attune with that spirit and mind. So that spirit and mind communes with us. So let us feel Camille Flammarion's presence and send him our deepest gratitude as we begin our study together. As Munir explained to us, we are going to be focusing tonight's study on the book God in Nature, and we are going to focus our attention more closely on three pillars brought to us by Camille Flammarion. The first of which being willpower, the second of which being instinct and reason, and the third being the reference to God. So let us begin, dear friends. First things first, let us remind ourselves of who Camille Flammarion was while incarnated on Earth. He was a French astronomer, great renowned writer and researcher, and a personal friend of Kardec. He was such a devoted spiritist at his time that he was invited by the members of the Spiritist Society of Paris to speak at the cemetery upon the discarnation of Allan Kardec. So he was very well regarded among the first Spiritists. So we would like to also express our deepest respect for him. So, in this particular book, Camille Flammarion compiled a wonderful study of the presence of divine providence, of the supreme intelligence of the universe, God, in nature. So, tonight we will dive into a greater understanding of the relationship between the spirit and its willpower. We will also come to better understand through Camille Flammarion's eyes how to foster courage as we are all enrolled in the school of life. Then we will explore our journey from instinct towards intelligence. And lastly, but also most importantly, we are going to examine the relationship between God, our universal creator, and our very own nature. So let us begin. First, we will examine Camille Flammarion's understanding of the relationship between the spirit and its willpower. In Camille Flammarion's view, the spirit's willpower is a moral value of many consequences, one of which is it provides the enthusiasm of fervorous souls, like, for instance, Paul of Tarsus. In one existence, he was able to shift mentality completely from being a persecutor of the Christ to being a fervent disciple of the Christ. Why? According to Camille Flammarion, because of course he was an evolved spirit already, but he already carried in him the great moral value of a strong will. Also, having a strong willpower will, according to Camille Flammarion, provide us with great intellectual potentiality. Camille Flammarion even mentions Benjamin Franklin, one of the great founding fathers of the United States, showing to us his great creativity as a sign of his strong willpower, expressing itself in its intellectual potentiality. Camille Flammarion also explains to us that the willpower has the role to propel us all towards great discoveries through which we all achieve both individual and collective progress. He also refers to willpower being the fuel through which we cultivate profound affection for one another, soul to soul. And finally, he explains that the will frames the very masterpieces of science and poetry. So, through Camille Flammarion's analysis, we come to understand the incredible role, the foundational role that the willpower given to us by God plays in our lives. According to him as well, let us examine together where willpower dwells, because the more we understand about our divine nature, the wiser our choices in this lifetime and in many more lifetimes to come will be. So, with this purpose in mind, let us borrow Camille Flammarion's very words to understand where this power resides within us. He explains that this power is in the spiritual soul that, according to him, hears the truth and marches directly towards its goal, regardless of the many obstacles that transpose its pathway. So we are very grateful for his explanation, because through it we come to understand that God imbued all of us with the strength, with the faith to overcome any obstacle. He goes further to explain that this is a sovereign force that helps us to overcome all hardships, and which extend itself much beyond the physical eyes. It is a mark of our divine heritage as children of God. And our dear Emmanuel, a century later, also explains the importance of the willpower in one's given reincarnation. In the book Thought and Life, which Emmanuel utilized to describe directives for a successful reincarnation, Emmanuel tells us that the will is the cabinet of the soul and the mind. Why? Because it governs all sectors of mental activity. According to Emmanuel, the will is also a powerful button through which the machine, the mind, the spirit, in this case, remains in either inertia or takes action. And Emmanuel goes further to explain that it is through the will that we are able to sustain sufficient harmony throughout a particular lifetime while incarnated. So it is really important that we understand the role that our free will and the power of our will plays in our ability to be successful in this reincarnation. Why? Because if we are not aware of the will's importance, we may fall into the dangers of spiritual inertia. What do we mean about spiritual inertia? What are signs of spiritual inertia? Spiritual inertia occurs when our willpower is weakened. What are signs that shows that this weakening of the will is taking place? First, we show signs of great self-centeredness, meaning we primarily think about ourselves and prioritize our own needs. Because we see ourselves as the center of our very own universe, we tend to be reactive, because every time things don't go, quote unquote, our way, we direct people to the highway. It's either our way or the highway. So we tend to explode in reactivity and become very impulsive when things don't go our way. And we also, as well, resist learning the new, because we would like to maintain the status quo and stay exactly as we are. Why then are we stuck in this mentality? Generally, because of pride, because we see ourselves superior than what we actually are, and we become prisoners of this pride. We only see our lives from this particular angle that favors us for no particular reason. An example of when we fall into this trap can be seen in the book 2000 years ago, also by Emmanuel, when Emmanuel is humble enough to describe his experiences as the Roman senator Publius Lentulus. He was experiencing in that lifetime 2000 years ago so much spiritual inertia, meaning resistance to change, that though he met the Christ personally, he did not embrace the opportunity to transform his life. And we all reincarnate to make profound transformations. However, pride, as it is stated in the Spirit's book, is one of the greatest obstacles to our progress because it blinds us. It only helps us to remain in the status quo, doing what we already know how to do, blinded for opportunities of growth. This is why pride is associated with spiritual inertia. And when we do experience spiritual inertia, we tend to dwell in self-pity, to hold a pity party, thinking that if things don't go our way, it is the end of the world because things must be as we wish. And this movement of self-pity, which imprisons us, causes us to resist forgiving others because we think that others are the ones that need to adapt to us and to our wishes in a very childish kind of approach to life. So if we would like to see how much we still carry these characteristics of spiritual inertia within us, we could read the book 2000 years ago to recognize the signs in Publius Lentulus and in others, and see how we can make profound transformations also through the spirits who embraced this transformation literally by meeting with the Christ. So it's a beautiful opportunity for us to recalibrate ourselves, inspired not only by Camille Flammarion, but also by Emmanuel's journey towards spiritual progress away from spiritual inertia. And as we attempt to move away from spiritual inertia, Camille Flammarion, in the book God and Nature, reminds us that we have reincarnated to foster courage to experience life from a spiritual stance, to spiritualize our lives, to detach from materialistic principles to which we have been attached for so many millennia. It takes courage to change. And Camille Flammarion reminds us that in exercising our willpower, we do find the courage to transform ourselves. He, in the book God and Nature, provides us with many examples of courageous spirits who, like him, were pioneers at his time, setting the tone of a spiritualized existence for all of us. And we have taken the liberty of providing a summary of a few tools that we can utilize based upon Camille Flammarion's perspective and the perspective of Kardec and others in order to strengthen our ability to make transformations, inner transformations. So the first recommendation is utilizing prayer. It is not by chance, dear friends, that the first divine law is the law of worship, because it is through our conscious connection with God that we can acquire the strength and the virtues to move forward in our spiritual progress, to overcome inner obstacles, such as, for instance, the resistance to change, or the resistance to forgive, or the tendency to be impulsive. So, as we pray, we also come to cultivate the virtue, the foundational virtue of humility. Why? Because we recognize that we are not the center of the universe, but rather God is. And as we surrender to God's design in direct communication with God, we open ourselves to the new, because every time we pray, we attune with wonderful, great minds that inspire us to change our conduct for the better, so that we achieve the reincarnatory milestones that have been detailed in our reincarnatory plan. Each of us have a loving group of spirits accompanying us that know of the milestones that we are here to achieve. And they, when we commune in prayer, are able to inspire us, so for so long as we are humble enough to have eyes that see and ears that hear. So as we open ourselves to the new, we begin moving away from the belief that we are the center of our lives, and as a result, we begin helping others. Always we develop our agenda of the good daily. And as we seek the good in others and in ourselves, we can help it but develop an attitude of gratitude for God, because we begin feeling the presence of God in everything and in everyone around us. And this presence of God that then permeates our lives gives us the courage to overcome obstacles, which we then see as opportunities for growth. And as we come to recognize the opportunities for growth, as the role models Camille Flammarion described in his book for us to inspire us, we are able to surrender to God's loving plans for each and every one of us. So as we experience difficulties, we have the courage to say, and the humility to say, God is with us, God loves us. We may not fully understand why this is taking place, but God shall provide us with a direction, and God shall provide us with the resources which we temporarily lack. So as we surrender to God's plans, courage will come along, as well as a strengthened willpower will also result. And as we strengthen our willpower, beloved friends, we are able to better understand how we journeyed from instinct towards intelligence. When we are prideful, when we fail to understand our connection to God, we may believe, and we may have already believed, that we are who we are because of our own doing. But we know that we were not self created. For instance, we are breathing right now as we speak. Who is making us breathe? Are we able to tell our lungs to breathe? No, we don't even have to think about it. How about digestion? We also don't even have to think about it. How about the making of our physical bodies? We didn't even have to think about it. So, this journey from instinct towards intelligence does not happen randomly or does not happen in accordance to our own will, because, as we said, we are not self created. And Camille Flammarion reminds us of the importance of understanding this reality when he recommends that we do not fall into the trap of believing that everything, as in the lower kingdoms of nature, can be referred back to us, to ourselves, because we are not the supreme creators of the universe. Camille Flammarion reminds us to be humble, or invites us to embrace humility by coming to understand that everything obeys a divine plan. So he tells us in the book God in Nature that, for instance, we may utilize wood to build furniture, but we were not the ones who created wood. He also says that we could utilize cotton, for example, to make clothing. However, we were not the ones that made cotton itself. So he's asking us to recognize God's presence in everything surrounding us, that we become, as Leon Denis also tells us in another book, obsessive with gratitude towards God. So, as we are sitting at our table right now, at our desk, we shall express gratitude for the people who designed the desk, for the people who collected the raw material, for the people that assembled the desk together, for the people who painted the desk, for the people who transported the desk. So we may, quote unquote, believe that we are self sufficient and that we are here out of our own effort alone. But if we stop to examine all the blessings that surround us, we see how interdependent we are. And we see, like Camille Flammarion reminds us, that everything follows or obeys a divine plan. For us to understand this journey from instinct towards intelligence in more detail, we recommend and invite everyone to study the book Evolution in Two Worlds by the spirit doctor André Luiz through the blessed mediumship of Chico Xavier. In this book, Andre Lewis provides us with the blueprint of God's presence down to the atoms that surround us. So we see God's blueprint, divine providence at work, weaving through the entire universe. So we come closer to God as we know that we are part of God's universe and we are honored for it, but we are not our very own creators. So, as we accept our smallness, we also feel honored to have been created out of God's love. And we also, dear friends, recommend for those of us who would like to understand this journey towards instinct, from instinct towards intelligence more deeply, we can study the book Evolution in Two Worlds as well on Kardec Radio. Our dear Dr. Vanessa Anceloni, the founder of Kardec Radio, studied this book through the Kardec Radio platforms 3 years ago. So if we Google Evolution in Two Worlds on our Kardec Radio's YouTube channel, we shall find a whole playlist where Dr. Anceloni and other scholars study chapter by chapter of this very illuminating book, which shows us exactly how God planned every stage of our evolution. All of us have gone through prior to reaching the human phase through the lower kingdoms of nature. And in this book, Andre Lewis documents God's careful organization and planning and love and protection as we are created as spiritual principles and we evolve throughout millennia to march towards intelligence where we are now. So there is a divine order in the universe which guides who we are and who we shall become, as we are grateful to Camille Flammarion for shedding greater light into this process. We invite everyone to examine the book God in Nature if they can, because Camille Flammarion describes this journey from instinct towards intelligence in a very poetic way, describing the role that we intelligent beings have in interacting with the lower kingdoms of nature while respecting the lower kingdoms of nature, knowing that everything is part of divine creation as executed by divine providence in accordance to the will of God. So, of course, Camille Flammarion had to remind us even more closely of our divine nature. Camille Flammarion is such a great mind that he is able to beautifully bring together science and poetry as he almost paints a beautiful picture and anthem in honor of God throughout his words in the book. It's beautiful to see how he is able to make scientific principles be immersed in a poetic view of God's love. It's beautiful how he's able to combine reason and harmony together. And he does so in his understanding of God and our divine nature. In our free translation from Portuguese, Camille Flammarion tells us that common sense dictates that one cannot attribute to mere fortuitous circumstances, molecules, electricity, and the very composition of air itself, as well as the cosmic facts that align perfectly with plants and animals alike. According to Camille Familien, one cannot assume that these are millions of impressions which are randomly imprinted and organized throughout the universe. So we are so grateful to Camille Flammarion for his incredible wisdom and humility in recognizing God's greatness in so many ways and in such a poetic manner and tone. He is a great example of someone who, like Kardec has said, is able to combine reason and faith together in his understanding of life. And we are very grateful that he shared his insights with us because they can truly be inspirational for us to come closer to our very divine nature as we dive more deeply into Camille Familion's understanding of God and relationship with God. And if we would like to understand our divine nature in even more detail, as Spiritism is a progressive science that complements each other, we recommend that we also refer to the book in addition to God and Nature. We also refer to the book On the Way to the Light by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier. God and Nature and On the Way to the Light complement each other beautifully as Emmanuel further corroborates with Camille Familion's understanding of God and our divine nature, as Emmanuel presents as the step-by-step plan of God for the evolution, spiritual progress of the earth. So Emmanuel goes through the historical phases of moral progress of the earth, and he explains the roles of each peoples in this book. It's a beautiful, beautiful treaty of divine wisdom and love that Emmanuel kindly shares with us, and that also Camille Familien voices in this book. So it's beautiful how these great minds echo each other in their wisdom, and how Spiritism is the science of wisdom, love, and truth combined together. And the truth remains the truth no matter how much time passes. So Emmanuel and Camille Familien beautifully walk side by side as they surrender to the guidance of our very governor, the wonderful heart and mind, who is our role model and who provides us all with a roadmap to find our divine nature within. Right, Munir?
Yes, thank you so much, Carol. It's been a wonderful, beautiful presentation. I very much like the way you bring more modern books and authors to show that some of the ideas that were presented by Camille Flammarion in his time, they evolved, but they are there in all these works that you presented, and many more. It's interesting. We invite all those watching us, to those who don't know these books, also to read them
Mhm.
after reading God in Nature by Camille Flammarion. And normally a doubt that we have is Camille Flammarion, the time that he lived was basically over a century ago, and maybe what he brought to us is outdated. But it's interesting to see that no, it's not outdated. It's just actually the beginning of all these. And as you said, the truth is the truth, and nothing will change it. Nothing. It doesn't matter if we believe in it or we don't believe, we partially believe in that, we see it this way or that way. Truth is truth. And slowly things will come back, and then our eyes will be open to that. And this beautiful book written by an astronomer, a scientist, talking about God in nature, and this perception that he had of the divine presence in everything.
Mhm.
And we are,
And
I don't know what you think, but we are very much attached to the idea of God as a human being. So,
right.
and it's difficult to see a human being behind everything else. But when we, yes, conceive a different God, which is the one presented by the spirits in question one of the Spirit's book, what is God? Then from there we start to understand that His presence is indeed everywhere.
We are immersed in an ocean of God's love, right?
Yeah.
So it's beautiful to know that God literally cares for each and every one of us. And it's Camille Flammarion, as you said, is a true visionary, because he was able to already make this jump, this connection between God and everything. He already understood that God is not limited to any material parameter, as we have believed for millennia. He already understood that God permeates the universe, that God cannot be both the effect and the cause of something, that God must be the intelligent cause of everything. And so he documents it so poetically and scientifically at the same time. It's incredible to see, right, Munir?
Yes, indeed. And coming from someone with such a scientific background, and also doing so much work in astronomy, and so we see that the same person who gave tremendous contribution for science, he also gave with his mind, his perception, his view, even his scientific perception of things. He gave this tremendous contribution to spiritism, because he then could see with his scientific eyes this consistency of the teachings that the spirits were bringing, and some of the ideas that he had from these perception that he had, and he shared with us. And of course, we see the evolution of these ideas pointing us the way to the truth that we all look for.
Yes. Like Kardec writes himself, the truth is the truth in all epochs of humanity. So
Yeah.
it's beautiful to see that under the governance of the Christ, we have received the same message over and over and over again. So it's one more sign that we are all being divinely guided.
Yes, indeed. So, Carol, I want to thank you very much indeed in the name of Peace, the Spiritist Group, and also the organizers. for your contribution. It's been really, really wonderful, delightful, I would say, to see your presentation, and the way you matched the information, from Camille Flammarion and to the authors, many decades after him, showing that he pointed out the right direction.
He most definitely has. And
Yes, yeah,
any science is
yes,
always progressive.
yeah,
Um, the current researchers build upon the works of those who came before. So
yeah,
Spiritism is no different, right?
yes.
Yes.
And you see, there was a contribution from the spirits through the Kardec's work, but also the contribution from those with a brilliant mind, like we had the chance to study, Leon Denis, and then Gabriel Delane, and now Camille Flammarion, showing that, they had from, based on their background, their experience, and, they gave their contribution as well. So combined all
Yeah.
together, we start to, envisage the, what is coming ahead and what you expect for the future. Thank
It's
you
all
very
part of
much
the
indeed.
divine plan. Thank you,
Yes.
Munir. Thank you so
Before
much
we
for your
go, yeah, I'll make some announcements. So,
please.
yeah. So next month, on the 2nd of June, we'll carry on Camille Flammarion series. And, next time we have Rafael Caldas, Haunted Houses. Rafael from BAS and the Spiritist Society of London. He'll be with us talking about this other book by Camille Flammarion. So the 2nd of June, 7 p.m. British Summer Time. And I hope to see you all there. We also have the Spiritist Center for Peace holds studies, and we have a study on Wednesdays, 12 noon London time. We study Heaven and Hell, the book by Allan Kardec, and also the Gospel according to Spiritism. So everyone is welcome to join us in this study. It is a study. Everyone has the opportunity to give their contribution, bring their ideas, and discuss as we move along the book. We also have an open online course on the Mediums book, and this is on Saturday. So this is coordinated by Guilherme Dias, Charles Kempf, and myself. So every Saturday, 10:30 a.m. London time as well. We have also the meetings by the Spiritist Society of London. So is every Tuesday, 7 p.m. London time, also online. And finally, we want to thank very much Kardec Radio for allowing us to bring this opportunity through these talks that we have about so important people in Spiritism. And, they open their studio, and we then want to express our gratitude to them. So that's what we had for today. Carol, once again, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Munir,
It's
very
been
much.
really nice.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Much gratitude to everyone involved in this study series.
Okay, thank you. So, and to you all watching us, bye bye. See you in a month's time.